Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
Breaking tonight on ABC News Live Prime, a potentially catastrophic monster winter storm takes shape.
The monster storm already causing a travel nightmare. Thousands of flights canceled, passengers scrambling to change their plans. I'm Whit Johnson reporting from LaGuardia Airport.
Tonight, 17 states under emergency declarations, 200 million people on alert for dangerous winter weather. The conditions already starting to take hold. I'm Morgan Norwood in Dallas, Texas, where the big concern for so many, especially after that 2021 deadly winter storm, is how will the power grid hold up this time?
And this massive storm stretching 2,000 miles. Will there be snow and ice and life-threatening wind chills? I'm meteorologist Lee Goldberg, and I'll have the track and timing.
One of the FBI's most wanted is captured. Alleged drug kingpin and former Canadian Olympic snowboarder Ryan Wedding surrenders to authorities after a decade in hiding, where he was finally caught. Hundreds of businesses in Minnesota closed in protest over the continued immigration crackdown in Minneapolis. Top ICE officials defending their actions. President Trump, back from Europe, ignites a firestorm with America's two closest allies, Canada and the UK, claiming they never really sacrificed on the battlefield to defend the United States. The future of scrolling is secured. TikTok seals the deal to operate in the U.S. after years of battling and a potential ban. And the new year is the perfect time to get organized. From your closet to your schedule, a certified professional organizer is helping you get things in order.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Stephanie Ramos in for Linsey Davis. Thank you for streaming with us. We begin tonight with that monster winter storm now taking shape and what could be a very long, dangerous weekend ahead. You could drive from Arizona to Maine and still be under a winter storm alert. That's how massive the system is. Heavy snow, dangerous ice, freezing rain, and brutal cold. The massive storm building in Texas and Oklahoma tonight and stretching for 2,000 miles. Up to a foot of snow is expected in New York and Boston, and the first signs of the storm appearing in Texas and Oklahoma. Snow, sleet, and freezing rain. Authorities warning of dangerous driving even before the storm. Dash camera video showing a driver losing control, crashing on I-70 in Ohio. And in Philadelphia, they're loading plows with salt. The city declaring a snow emergency. Drivers urged to stay off the roads. Thousands of flights are now canceled, many airlines waiving rebooking fees. Major airports in the path of the storm may be forced to close for hours until it passes. A common scene across this massive system, customers lining up at grocery stores. That video right there is from New York City. Our team of reporters standing by to break it all down. And Lee Goldberg has the forecast. But first, ABC's Morgan Norwood leads us off from Dallas.
Tonight, that powerful winter storm threatening more than half the country, set to slam millions with heavy snow and crippling ice. Authorities warning families to take this seriously, from New York all the way down to Texas. New York Governor Kathy Hochul tonight.
This is a very dangerous combination of heavy snow and extreme cold temperatures.
New York City bracing for what could be its biggest snowstorm in nearly 5 years, up to a foot possible. Epic lines at grocery stores. Parts of the South bracing for potentially catastrophic impacts, up to an inch of ice possible. Fears of more crashes like these in Belmont County, Ohio this week. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee sounding the alarm.
We all know that there is a very serious winter storm coming. Snow, sleet, ice, freezing rain. Very dangerous conditions.
In Texas, road crews out in force. And here in Dallas, brine trucks, sand, cones strategically placed under major overpasses so road crews can quickly respond as conditions worsen. Officials warning the ice could knock out power for days.
We're going to monitor all of the impacts to the electric grid.
Utility teams racing into the storm zone ahead of expected widespread power outages. And right after this storm, brutally cold temperatures sweeping in from the north across most of this country, expected to last for days. Our Alex Perez is in Chicago.
Here near Lake Michigan in Chicago, you can see the water is completely frozen over. The Midwest in a deep freeze. The feel-like temperature in some spots 30 to 40 below zero.
That brutal cold will soon spread across the country.
Many of us anticipating that brutal cold. Morgan Norwood joins us now. And Morgan, what are the conditions like where you are in Dallas?
Well, Stephanie, we're definitely starting to get in on that brutal cold here. Not quite the temperatures that are expected to plunge overnight, but you can see the rain, you can hear it. This storm is moving in, and the big message from officials tonight, as all of this changes over into dangerous mix of ice and sleet, is to stay off of these roads. Simply just stay home. Stephanie?
Some really good advice. Morgan Norwood for us there in Dallas. Thank you, Morgan. Please stay safe. Let's get right to WABC's chief meteorologist, Lee Goldberg, who is timing all of this out for us. Lee, what is the latest forecast?
Well, Stephanie, we're actually pivoting from forecast to nowcast across parts of Texas as the storm is now underway with some icing. More Americans than not under some type of alert with this storm. It's just incredible, whether it's cold weather alerts to some ice storm warnings to the south and winter storm warnings that stretch from the plains all the way into the interior northeast. There's the icing across North Texas. And over the next 24 hours, we're going to see this go from Texas through the mid-south, some snow, Oklahoma City, all the way to Louisville here. Extended icing from Dallas into Nashville and Raleigh, and then the snow is getting up into the northeast. So by Sunday morning, from Cincinnati to D.C., very heavy snowfall getting going in Philly and New York City. And then we'll see some mixing. So that'll keep totals down just a little bit in D.C. and over in Philly. New York, too. Boston's going to stay mostly snow in the interior northeast. Basically gets the lion's share of the big totals over a foot or more. So talking totals, could be a half-inch of ice from Dallas to Nashville, damaging on the north side of Atlanta up to about Roanoke, and even some icing into parts of southern New Jersey. And then look at the snowfall totals. Over a foot of snow, Wichita, over to Pittsburgh. You see D.C. and Philly and New York, 8 to 12 inches here. Less mixing. New York could get to a foot. Boston will get to a foot, and certainly in the interior northeast, we get over a foot. And remember, as we're trying to prepare for this, it's dangerous cold outside with sub-zero wind chills. And this is going to be the longest cold stretch to follow the storm in 8 years in parts of the northeast. Stephanie?
Really incredible to see the advisories and the warnings just really across the country. All right, Lee, thank you so much. This massive storm is expected to cripple air travel this weekend. Major airlines already canceling flights and waiving fees. Airports warning they may be forced to close, and getting back on schedule could take days. Here's ABC's Whit Johnson.
Tonight, U.S. airlines bracing for what could be the worst weather-related travel nightmare in years. More than 2,000 flights already canceled for Saturday. This map showing more than 24 airports across nearly 20 states will be impacted by the monster storm and dangerous ice. And officials expect complete airport closures on Sunday, lasting for hours. This evening, all major airlines at Oklahoma's Will Rogers International canceling flights. Most airlines offering to waive rebooking fees, urging passengers to change travel plans.
Didn't want to take any chances.
Exactly.
Karen Cummins grabbing an earlier flight to Orlando, rushing to beat the storm.
I don't even want to have the anxiety of wondering if I'm going to get out tomorrow, so I just took that out of the equation. I booked my flight today.
And when the snow does start to fall, it's estimated major airports will spend more than $30,000 an hour to keep the runways plowed. And Stephanie, after this massive backlog of flights, experts say it could take the airline several days to recover, with rolling cancellations potentially through next Wednesday. Stephanie?
Whit Johnson for us tonight at LaGuardia Airport. Thanks, Whit. All of that snow and ice will certainly cause emergency traffic conditions in large sections of the country. With us now to go over some do's and don'ts of driving in these dangerous conditions is AAA Senior Repair Manager David Bennett. David, thank you so much for joining us tonight. So if someone is getting on the roads, it's snowing, it's icy, what should someone consider before getting on the road in these conditions?
Well, before, consider whether or not you really need to be on the road. But if you do find that you need to be on the road, let's make sure your vehicle is in good shape. Go ahead and take a look at the tires. Do they have the correct pressure? Do they have the correct tread depth? Take a look at the lights. Make sure that they all work, because that's about seeing and also being seen. And then make sure your wipers are in good condition. Then additionally, you want to go ahead and pack yourself a emergency kit, just in case you get stranded or stuck into a traffic jam. That should consist of some water, some non-perishable food. If you're carrying a pet, make sure you bring plenty of extra water and food for them. You want to have a first aid kit, flashlight, blanket, gloves, hat, things like that, including maybe a shovel or some non-clumping kitty litter, just in case you do get stuck. It may be able to help you get out of that.
Really good tips. And let's talk a bit about ice. If there's ice on the road, one thing that's really hard for drivers to see is black ice. So what should drivers keep in mind if they do have to head out in these conditions?
Well, first, take your time. Give yourself plenty of time to get to your destination. You have one job, and that's really to get from point A to point B. So now you want to clear all your distractions in the car. Put the phone away. Don't worry about phone calls, text messages, and just focus. Both hands on the wheel, on the steering wheel. Put them around 8 and 4 o'clock at your clock positions. And you want to just drive. And you want to maintain a very safe and maybe a little bit extra room between you and the vehicle in front of you. You do not want to be switching lanes very often, because that's a lot of times where the black ice can be, is in between that area where cars are not driven a lot.
Those are some really good reminders, really important reminders. All right, David, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate your time. Stay warm.
Thank you. Thank you. Stay safe out there.
Yes. In Minnesota tonight, there was a massive protest against President Trump's immigration crackdown. Tens of thousands were on the streets and hundreds of businesses shut down during the statewide strike. ICE officials are still defending their actions. ABC's Matt Rivers reports from Minneapolis tonight.
Tonight, a citywide protest against ICE in Minneapolis. Businesses and schools closing as more than 20,000 people braved the brutal cold to fill downtown, the largest march since protests began. Hundreds descended on the Minneapolis airport, demanding ICE leave the city.
So you can see here protesters being arrested here at the Minneapolis airport, roughly 100 people being taken into custody for blocking this airport road. It's negative 40 degrees with the wind chill out here right now, and yet still protesters out and about with a message, ICE out.
Why is it so important for you to be out here today?
This isn't the world I want to live in.
After 3 protesters were arrested for this demonstration inside a church where one of the pastors is also the director of an ICE field office, the Justice Department now says they will face federal charges for attacking the religious freedom of churchgoers. And tonight, ICE tactics under the microscope. Stop! In Minneapolis, a federal agent seen chasing down this 19-year-old.
What is your name? Do you have a warrant for his arrest? Do you have a warrant?
DHS says the young man was here illegally and fled from officers.
You're scaring the kid.
Just let us talk to the kid and we're going to get out of here.
And new tonight, ICE defending its own agents after taking this 5-year-old boy into custody after the local school district said the 5-year-old boy had been detained. ICE saying they cared for the boy, while other agents apprehended his father.
My officers did everything they could to reunite him with his family. Tragically, when we approached the door of his residence, the people inside refused to take him in and open the door.
The family lawyer calls that a lie, saying the father and son now being held together at a detention center in Texas. And tonight, growing concern over a new immigration crackdown in Maine. Federal agents yanking a driver out of his car as he tells them he works with the corrections department. The local sheriff blasting ICE.
Folks, that's Bush League policing.
Inside one home in Maine, a resident capturing this threat from an ICE agent at his door.
We're going to come back for your whole family, okay?
No, okay, no problem.
Stephanie, tonight, top ICE officials are defending their actions after being accused of detaining that 5-year-old boy, claiming, quote, "We are experts in dealing with children." Stephanie?
Matt, thank you for that report tonight. And next tonight, President Trump has ignited a firestorm with America's closest allies, claiming the U.S. has, quote, never needed NATO. Some world leaders are pushing back tonight. ABC's Mary Bruce has this story.
Tonight, anguish and outrage from America's closest NATO allies after President Trump claimed they never really sacrificed on the battlefield to defend the United States.
We've never needed them. We have never really asked anything of them. You know, they'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or this or that. And they did. They stayed a little back, a little off the front lines.
The only time NATO countries have been called to defend one of their own was when the United States asked for help after 9/11. Today, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer paid tribute to the more than 450 British soldiers who lost their lives in Afghanistan.
I consider President Trump's remarks to be insulting and frankly appalling.
And a rare statement from Prince Harry, who served 2 tours of duty in Afghanistan. Thousands of lives were changed forever, he wrote. Mothers and fathers buried sons and daughters. Children were left without a parent. Families are left carrying the cost. Those sacrifices deserve to be spoken about truthfully and with respect. Retired Corporal Bruce Moncourt was among the 40,000 Canadian troops who fought alongside the U.S.
I know 13 people that were killed in Afghanistan fighting. I know another 13 that have killed themselves from their time fighting there.
Moncourt himself suffered a brain injury. Tonight, he says he's, quote, enraged by the president's comments. And the British Prime Minister today saying if he were Trump, he would apologize to those families. But the White House not doing that. Instead, in a statement saying the U.S., quote, has done more for NATO than any other country in the alliance has done combined. Stephanie.
Mary Bruce for us there at the White House. Thank you, Mary. For more now, we're joined by Alan Leventhal. He's the former U.S. ambassador to Denmark. Mr. Leventhal, thank you so much for your time once again. We spoke last Friday right here on Prime. A lot has happened in a week. As you know, President Trump wrapped his trip in Davos. Lots of news and headlines coming out of that trip. What were some major takeaways for you?
NATO was at risk. If we have the U.S. invading a NATO country and Greenland is part of the NATO umbrella, being part of the Kingdom of Denmark, I don't know how NATO would continue to exist as it does today. And even Foreign Minister Lavrov from Russia had made a statement that if the U.S. invades Greenland, it justifies the Russian takeover of Crimea from Ukraine. What would have happened with China in terms of their potential takeover of Taiwan, in terms of how they're viewing things? So I was very concerned.
Speaking of NATO, in an interview with Fox News, Trump downplayed NATO's involvement in the U.S. war in Afghanistan. So what kind of repercussions does this kind of statement have when it comes to the U.S.'s relationship with European allies and their military support?
If you look at Denmark, Denmark served in Afghanistan side by side with American soldiers. NATO was there. Denmark had a per capita death rates equal to higher than the U.S. So we have stood beside, these NATO countries have stood beside the U.S. And I'm just pleased that we seem to be making progress at a resolution of this very concerning issue about potential military action and tariffs in Europe.
Definitely hoping for a resolution. Looking forward, is it a real possibility that the U.S. loses or fractures its alliance with its European partners? Or do leaders in Europe expect this kind of rhetoric from Trump at this point?
Well, look, I think people are concerned about the rhetoric. I think there has been some damage done. But I think we just ought to focus on moving forward. We have to rebuild our alliances. I was pleased with the president's comments of standing down in terms of the use of force. I was pleased in terms of saying no additional tariffs on these European countries. I think we just need to make progress. We need to get this resolved with the Danes. The Danes are such a close ally of the U.S. I think we could have had these discussions and resolved this very quickly from the very beginning.
And as all of this is playing out, I can't help but wonder what our adversaries are thinking right now. What are your thoughts? What kind of message is Trump sending to U.S. adversaries when it comes to the desired acquisition of Greenland?
Well, I think the message was not a good one about going into Davos. I think we've made progress. And I think the most important thing we can do right now is complete these discussions, complete the agreements with Denmark in terms of meeting the U.S. security requirements in Greenland and the high north. And that's what I think we should be focused on right now.
Former U.S. ambassador to Denmark, Alan Leventhal, thank you so much, sir, for your time.
Thank you. It's so delighted to be with you.
Tonight, one of the FBI's most wanted is now under arrest. Former Olympic snowboarder Ryan Wedding has been captured, surrendering to authorities. Our Pierre Thomas has the latest.
Tonight, the former Olympian turned alleged drug kingpin, who rose to the top of the FBI's most wanted list, now in U.S. custody, surrounded by top DEA and FBI officials, including Director Kash Patel.
This individual and his organization and the Sinaloa cartel poured narcotics into the streets of North America.
Sources say that 44-year-old Ryan Wedding, who competed in the 2002 Winter Games in Salt Lake City as a snowboarder, turned himself in after days of intense negotiations with Mexican and U.S. officials, surrendering overnight in Mexico City. The FBI claims that Wedding, whose aliases include El Jefe, Giant, and Public Enemy, ran a massive drug trafficking enterprise that allegedly smuggled cocaine to the U.S. and Canada.
Mr. Wedding is also wanted for orchestrating multiple murders of victims and government witnesses.
According to a 2025 grand jury indictment, Wedding issued an order to kill a federal witness who was set to testify against him. That witness shot 5 times in the head while he was eating at a restaurant. Authorities sought Wedding, who's Canadian, for years. Law enforcement officials saying they seized drugs, cash, weapons, and $40 million worth of motorcycles. And this car, which they say is valued at $15 million.
Stephanie, law enforcement has been hunting for Wedding for years, and there was a $15 million reward for his capture. It tells you what a high-value target he was. Stephanie?
It certainly does. Pierre Thomas reporting for us there tonight. We now have a date for the jury selection in Luigi Mangione's federal trial. Mangione is accused of shooting and killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in Manhattan in December of 2024. The judge announced today that jury selection will begin September 8th. She's now considering whether the death penalty will be an option. If it's excluded as a possible sentence, the trial would begin on October 13th. If the death penalty remains on the table, the trial will not begin until January of 2027. Outrage is growing after the National Park Service removed a slavery exhibit at Philadelphia's Independence National Historic Park. Crews took down panels last night at the site of the presidential mansion where George and Martha Washington lived with the people they enslaved. The Interior Department says the move follows President Trump's executive order restoring truth and sanity to American history. Critics call it whitewashing history. The city of Philadelphia has filed a lawsuit to stop the display's permanent removal. And in Indiana, 5 people have been arrested in connection with the shooting of a judge and his wife at their home. We're now learning more about a possible motive. ABC's chief investigative correspondent Aaron Katursky has those details.
Tonight, 5 days after an Indiana judge and his wife were shot in their home, these 5 people are under arrest, accused of plotting to kill Judge Stephen Meyer to delay the trial of one of the suspects, which was to take place in Judge Meyer's courtroom this week. Meyer and his wife Kimberly are recovering after they were shot through the door Sunday afternoon by a man standing on their front porch with a shotgun.
There was a knock on the door. Someone advised, "We have your dog," and then a shot came through the door.
Prosecutors say home surveillance video shows the alleged gunman, 38-year-old Raylan Ferguson, firing multiple shots. Nearby, police say they recovered the gun and the suspect's clothes. Prosecutors say the same man approached Meyer's home days earlier, claiming he was there to deliver food before Meyer said through a closed door he hadn't ordered any. That alleged shooter is now facing attempted murder charges. So is 43-year-old Thomas Moss, who was supposed to stand trial before Judge Meyer this week for a series of violent felonies. Prosecutors say the suspects teamed up to target the judge as part of a concerted effort to impede the proceedings.
This shooting raised alarms about judicial security, Stephanie. And tonight, Indiana's chief judge is calling it an attack on free society. Steph?
Such a tragic story. Our thanks to Aaron Katursky. Global fashion icons joined the public to say goodbye to designer Valentino at his funeral service in Rome. After a 2-day public viewing, the funeral marked the final tribute to the internationally acclaimed designer. Among the mourners, fashion icons like Tom Ford, Donatella Versace, Anna Wintour, and actress Anne Hathaway were there. Valentino, who died at the age of 93 at his home in Rome on Monday, is known for dressing royals, first ladies, and celebrities. Coming up here on Prime, our segment, New Year, Better You. We have all the tips and tricks to keep us organized in the new year. Plus, U.S. TikTok users rejoice. The popular social media app is here to stay. We have all the details on the deal that ended the years-long battle. But up next, we continue to monitor that monster storm making its way across the country. We break down who will be hit the hardest and the millions already preparing by the numbers. Stay with us. major winter storm is beginning to get underway with significant impacts for millions over the next 48 hours. Snow and sleet is developing across parts of New Mexico and the Texas Panhandle. Dallas will likely see rain change to a wintry mix by later this evening, while Oklahoma City starts seeing some snow. As millions of Americans prepare for a potentially catastrophic storm, let's take a look at how some cities that are expected to be hit hard are preparing by the numbers. The city of Jackson, Mississippi owns 0 snowplows. They're expected to get a mix of ice and sleet this weekend. The city uses other heavy machinery like skid steers and small excavators to clear roads. And 12. That's the number of beet juice dispensing trucks in the city of Chicago. The natural sugars of beet juice lower the freezing point of water, allowing salt mixtures to work at much lower temperatures and preventing refreezing, while also helping salt stick to the road much longer. In Arkansas, the Department of Transportation has 78,000 cubic yards of salt on hand. The state has 121 salt houses around the state, plus 600 salt spreaders and 700 snowplows. They're prepared. In Texas, the state has 1,000 pieces of winter weather equipment, including snowplows, motor graders, and brine tankers. The Texas Department of Transportation said the agency also works with state partners and contractors to get more equipment when needed. And we end with 1. That's the number of Nashville snowplows named after country music legend and Tennessee native Dolly Parton. They named the snowplow Dolly Plowton. Get it? Nashville said, let's mix country and winter, and that equals a branding opportunity. Thanks to an expected mixture of snow and ice, all eyes are going to be on the power grids in hopes they are strong enough to withstand this storm. Joining us now is Steve Piper, the Director of Energy Research with S&P Global Energy. Steve, thanks so much for your time. Many of us remember when the Texas power grid froze. It failed following a snowstorm in 2021, leaving millions without power. How do grid managers prepare to avoid something like that from happening again?
Stephanie, thank you so much for having me on. Major winter storms like this create a lot of challenges, not the least of which is making sure everyone affected has access to heat and power. And after the severe winter storm of 2021. There was another one in 2022. Grid managers from Texas to the mid-Atlantic states have really taken steps to be better prepared for winter storms like this one, drawing lessons from those storms. One of those lessons was that gas generation has to be more available. During Winter Storm Uri in 2021, Texas lost 33 gigawatts of gas generation. That's enough to power 10 million homes, and that caused most of the state's customers to lose power. Ahead of this storm, Texas forecasts 84 gigawatts of peak demand, which would be a record for this time of year. The grid manager estimates 97 gigawatts will be on hand to meet that, which would be enough. But if they lose an amount of generation similar to 2021, Houston, we may have a problem.
Right. Well, it's good to hear that it seems as though they are prepared, grid workers. But in 2021, we saw those frozen gas pipelines, stone cold wind turbines, really unprepared power plants. Are there additional workers on standby right now ready to respond if the grid goes down?
Absolutely. There are steps being taken to winterize wind turbine blades, a lot like European wind turbines are outfitted with, to make them better prepared. Wind farm, operators were instructed to do that. Crews are standing by to deal with the foliage effects of accumulations of snow and ice. That's a much bigger issue in southern states than it is in say mid-Atlantic or northeastern states, to be better prepared. In a lot of ways, you're fighting the last war, and we can't guarantee that there won't be people losing power, but a lot of lessons have been taken away from those winter storms in 2021 and 2022.
Yeah, I would imagine so. And in the event that the power does go out, how should people prepare?
That's a really interesting question. Obviously, you want to be, resilient in the face of power outages. To the extent, you've got plenty of of light on hand or backup generation, or where emergency shelters, friends and neighbors who may still have power can be, that can help you weather the storm.
Yeah, and we really hope that this storm doesn't cause any power failures there in Texas or really across the country. Steve Piper, Director of Energy Research with S&P Global Energy. Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Coming up here on Prime, TikTok is officially here to stay in the U.S. after a deal was struck. What this means for the popular app used by millions. And no ropes, no fear. A world famous free solo climber risks it all in a high stakes climb of one of the tallest buildings in the world. That story is coming up. Welcome back to Prime. Here's a look at the stories making headlines right now. A mega winter storm is about to affect 180 million Americans. Meteorologists say it has the potential to be catastrophic. Hundreds of National Guard troops are being mobilized across multiple states as this monster storm is set to dump snow and ice over a stretch of 2,000 miles from New Mexico to New England. The storm is already causing travel headaches. More than 3,000 flights scheduled for tomorrow and Sunday have been canceled. And states of emergency have been declared in at least 17 states plus Washington, D.C. Hundreds of demonstrators are taking to the streets for Ice Out of Minnesota Day as they demand immigration agents leave the state. This video captured by our team on the ground shows federal agents arresting more than 100 people during a protest at the Minneapolis airport earlier today. Our team witnessed the protesters standing in the road and blocking traffic before they were ultimately taken into custody. 14 states are now reporting cases of the measles. The news comes as South Carolina reports 700 cases in an outbreak centered in the upstate region. According to CDC data, the vast majority of measles cases are among people who are either unvaccinated or don't know their vaccination status. And good news for travelers flying out of London's Heathrow Airport. The international hub is scrapping its 100 milliliter limit on liquids for carry-on luggage. Thanks to new CT scanners, travelers can now bring containers that hold up about half a gallon of liquids and keep their devices in their bags. Coming up here on Prime, the deal to save TikTok is done. What does this mean for users? We're going to break it down for you. And if one of your goals this year is to get your home better organized, we have an expert with what you need to know to declutter, reset, and bring some calm to your space. A major winter storm is now getting underway as bitter cold from a new Arctic blast sweeps south into Texas. Temperatures are plummeting in parts of New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas this evening. And we, of course, will have continuing coverage of this winter blast as millions brace for the storm's impact. And as we track that monster snowstorm, I want you to take a look at this. It's not coming down too heavy right now, but we're seeing the flakes start to fly in Oklahoma City. That is a live picture there out of Oklahoma. It's been more than a year since TikTok was required to split from Chinese owners in the U.S. And overnight, TikTok saying it completed the deal to spin off its U.S. operation. And joining us now to discuss all of this, what you need to know about TikTok and the latest changes taking effect is tech reporter at Bloomberg, Alexandra Levine. Thank you so much for joining us. So I think a lot of people have this same question. How will it affect my use on TikTok? Will we see the changes right away once we start scrolling?
The changes are really, at least for now, just on paper. The average person is probably not going to see a whole lot of change, at least not immediately. You're not going to have to download a new TikTok app. There are new terms and conditions you have to agree to. The terms and conditions, at least at first glance, appear to be pretty consistent with what you see from other kinds of tech social media apps today. I think the big question that remains is that the new ownership of this new TikTok entity that was created as a result of this deal is going to be responsible for content moderation. They're basically going to be retraining the algorithm that exists today, which is the reason everyone's so hooked on TikTok in the first place, on new data. So the question is, will that change what people are seeing? And there's also a question about whether the owners, which are investors that were hand-selected by the White House, will have any kind of say over the kinds of content that you're going to see on the platform. So I think those are the big outstanding things that remain to be seen.
Yeah, I would imagine that the For You pages might change a bit then if they're saying they want to retrain the algorithm.
So US users are still going to be able to see things that their friends or creators that they follow are posting abroad, and vice versa. But because they're retraining it on American data, it's possible that the types of things you'll see will be more based on American trends, a little bit less, with global influence. But there's still sort of an uncertainty about whether that will happen and the extent to which we'll actually notice it.
Okay.
One other thing I think is worth noting is that there are questions, as I mentioned, about whether the administration, which brokered the deal and counts among some of the investors in this new TikTok entity as sort of political allies, whether that will skew the types of information that people are seeing in a way that more closely aligns with the current White House.
That's certainly a big question. Let's talk about ByteDance, the Chinese company ByteDance. They'll retain nearly 20% stake in the venture, is that right? But what does that mean for the safety and security of data?
ByteDance will retain 19.9%, exactly. Interestingly, the law that was passed to address the national security concerns in the first place required that ByteDance completely separate from TikTok and sever all ties with TikTok. The deal that was reached and what we're seeing now is that there is going to be some sort of data protection. There is going to be some sort of different content moderation, et cetera. But ByteDance is still going to be heavily involved in this business. ByteDance's most valuable parts of the business include TikTok Shop, where lots of people are now doing online shopping, and also its advertising business.
Okay. And have we heard from the Chinese government at all? They haven't commented on this new deal, have they?
Not recently.
Okay. We'll keep our eye out for that. All right, Alexandra, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
And for your insights. All right, coming up here on Prime, we've got the latest forecast as parts of the country are bracing for snow and ice. And we're more than halfway through January. Can you believe it? How are you holding up with your New Year's goals? We've got advice for keeping your home organized in 2026. We continue to monitor the extreme winter weather making its way across the country. The biggest window for dangerous icing and heavy snow for the south will occur throughout the day on Saturday. Snow will likely be falling from St. Louis to Indianapolis and Cincinnati to Charleston, West Virginia. By the evening hours tomorrow, snow and ice stretches from New Mexico out east to the Carolinas. U.S. measles cases are on the rise, record contract for a women's soccer player, and a free solo climb at the tallest building in Taiwan. These stories and more in tonight's rundown. A historic feat airing live around the world as Alex Honnold will attempt to scale the tallest building in Taiwan without ropes or protective equipment. The professional rock climber is known for daring free solo climbs and was documented climbing Yosemite Park's El Capitan Peak unassisted. This time, he's climbing a towering glass skyscraper that stands at nearly 1,700 feet. If successful, he will be the first person ever to scale the building without any assistance. Tonight, Netflix postponing the climb till tomorrow due to the rain. The world has entered an era of global water bankruptcy as irreversible damage experienced by water systems has pushed many basins around the world beyond recovery. And that's according to a new report from the UN. Of the world's largest lakes, 50% have lost water since the early 1990s. That's according to the report. A quarter of humanity directly depends on those lakes, the researchers have said. The authors stressed that water bankruptcy is not a series of isolated local crises, but rather a shared global risk. At least 245 new measles cases have been reported in the U.S., according to newly updated data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The majority of cases occur among patients under the age of 19, and about 2% of all measles patients in the U.S. have been hospitalized. 14 states have reported cases so far, and health officials say that 94% of cases are among people who are unvaccinated or whose vaccination status is unknown. A scary moment at a pre-fight weigh-in. UFC bantamweight Cameron Smotherman collapsed moments after making weight ahead of his fight in Las Vegas. Smotherman successfully weighed in at 135.5 pounds, but then he fell to the floor after taking several steps away from the scale. He's about 5 feet 9 inches tall. He was eventually carried off the platform at T-Mobile Arena and tended to by doctors. Now, it is common for athletes to cut more than 10% of body weight in the days leading up to a weigh-in before rehydrating ahead of the competition. UFC officials canceled the match after that weigh-in. Dr. Gladys West, the mathematician whose groundbreaking work made GPS possible, has died at the age of 95. Born in 1930 to a family of sharecroppers, West excelled in school and earned a scholarship to Virginia State University where she studied math. She then spent years calculating precise models of the Earth's shape at the Naval Surface Warfare Center. Her mathematical work became the backbone of the global positioning system we all use today. Trinity Rodman signed a record 3-year contract with the Washington Spirit to remain with the club through 2028, ending months-long uncertainty over her future in the league. The deal is worth more than $2 million annually, including bonuses, making her the highest-paid player in league history and the highest-paid female player in the world. If one of your New Year's goals was to get your home organized and you haven't been successful so far, it is not too late. We're going to help you get back on track. Joining me now is certified professional organizer Samantha Pregenzer. Samantha, thanks for joining us. So January is almost over, a couple weeks left, right? But some people, they may have lost focus, right? The last few weeks, lost focus of their goals to organize. So where do they start? They can still start, right?
Absolutely. And I think, just because here we are heading into the end of January, if you're thinking that you missed your window, I really want to encourage you to kind of stop right there. Any time of year is the perfect time of year to start decluttering and organizing. I think, we deal with our clutter year round and your home isn't keeping track of what month of the year it is. So I don't think you should either. I think there is so much pressure that comes with that whole January 1st New Year's resolution idea. And I want to encourage people to remember that we didn't get to this state of clutter overnight, and therefore it's okay. It's going to take us a little bit of time to get organized.
Right. And a little bit goes a long way, too. If you do just a 20 minutes a day, every single day, it all adds up. And it feels so good when you walk into an organized space. All right. So you say pick your top 3 spaces, right? Based on impact, not perfection. What do you mean by that?
So what I want to start with is, first of all, I'm the professional organizer who's known for a love of power tools. I am going to encourage you to start with 2 of my favorites, which are actually not real power tools, but to me they are, and that's a pen and paper. So I think that's going to help us set our roadmap. Sit down, some self-reflection time, and figure out what is your full list of every space that kind of needs your attention. And skipping this step is what I see causes the overwhelm. So we want to set up a positive roadmap that we can go back and reflect on. And then once you have that full list, you can then begin to identify what are the biggest pain points on that list. So we want to start with, for example, what is the area that causes you the most daily stress? Or what are the things that you feel like you're constantly searching for or you're losing in the house? Or what is the space that frustrates you every single day? I think starting with a small list of your biggest pain points and not a room, for example, like your guest room that really nobody's ever touching. Let's start with the things that really matter and are going to make an impact every single day.
That's a really, really good tip. What would you say is the most important piece of advice when it comes to organizing and decluttering?
Wow. I would say really getting to know what are your habits, because not only do you want to have that list of spaces that are kind of bugging you, but once we really start getting into when we get past decluttering and you want to start setting up organization and systems, the systems that are going to be the longest lasting are going to be the ones that align with your natural habits. So really spending time to understand what sort of system is going to make the best sense for you, and it's going to work very naturally, because that's also going to help with your maintenance.
Really good tips. And I love that what you said about habits, knowing what your habits are. I know for me, it's walking in the door and immediately taking my jacket off, putting it over a chair. And then by the end of the week, there are 4 different jackets on the chair. And then I just quickly put them away. So just knowing what your habits are, that's a really good tip. Samantha, thank you so much. Thanks for your time. More than 180 million Americans are on alert from New Mexico to Maine as a major winter storm unfolds through the weekend. WABC's chief meteorologist Lee Goldberg is tracking this monster storm. Lee, bring us up to speed.
All right, Stephanie, so the storm is ramping up now across the south. Ice storm developing along I-20. Snow to the north across parts of Oklahoma and Kansas. Remember, this stretches all across the Mid-South tomorrow, then up into the Northeast on Sunday with big snows in the interior. We could have a damaging, if not crippling, ice storm from Dallas and Shreveport and Nashville, north side of Atlanta. And the big snows, plowable snows, New Mexico to New England. But just to the west of the I-95 corridor, the best chances for a foot, about 8 to 12 inches from D.C. into New York, but more in Boston, and bitter cold as we get ready for the storm and staying power with the cold after the storm. Stephanie?
Lots to watch. Lee Goldberg for us tonight. Thanks, Lee. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Stephanie Ramos. Stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thank you for streaming with us. Stay safe.